Welcome to Starkey Soundbites. I'm your host, Dave Fabry, Starkey's Chief Hearing Health Officer. Now, today we're really excited to bring back a five-time guest on the
Five
Soundbites.
times?
Yes, you're
Saturday
the
Night
first
Live.
five-timer, so we need to work on the jacket or however we're going to commemorate that. But Starkey President and CEO Brandon Sawalich this month celebrates 30 years with Starkey and in the hearing aid industry. So I know you started when you're 12. We always have to say that.
And when did you start? How old were you?
In the industry, 17.
There you go.
So, but I don't wear it quite as well as you do. 42 years in the business now. So, but this month, we thought we'd have a little bit of fun by doing our own take on the ESPN series 30 for 30. We're going to do one question for each of your 30 years with Starkey, and we're going to try to do it 30 for 30 in 30. Okay. So this is going to be a lightning round of questions and really commemorating that, a significant milestone in terms of you were named the president of Starkey in 2017 and CEO in 2020. And you've really shepherded us, led us through an era of great transformation in the organization. You were the first in the industry to embed sensors and use artificial intelligence, which is now become ubiquitous, but also meaningless. But we were way out in front of this under your leadership, and we'll come back to that a little bit later in some of the questions. But June 20th is your 30th anniversary with Starkey. Congratulations on that, Brandon, and welcome back to Soundbite.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate being here. And you're right; it's kind of like the fifth time. Time flies when you're having fun, and this is my favorite topic: talking about myself. It's what most people would think, but it's my least favorite topic. But
I know that.
But sure, let's have some fun here and see what you can find out.
All right, we'll start out with some softballs because we want to try to get that pace to see how closely we can come to the 30 for 30 in 30.
Okay.
And we'll start out cats versus dogs.
Dogs.
Yeah, figured as much.
Yeah.
And favorite dog?
Bulldog. English Bulldog.
Okay. So May was Better Hearing Month. We talk about hear better, live better, and that's really the focus of Starkey. And under your leadership, we've really live and breathe that every day. With May being Better Hearing Month, one of the things when we talk about hearing better and living better is music. What's your favorite song?
Oh, What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong.
Wow, that surprised me. I was expecting Summer of '69 or something.
Yeah, I like Bryan Adams. I could do, Blues Brothers, Soul Man, go down the list. But that song always, resonates, calms. I'm an old soul, Dave. So
I did not have that on my bingo card, so that was good.
You would.
You're known for your commitment to innovation. Talked about AI. And how did you come up with the initiative and the goal, the objective, to be our industry's first company to embed AI into hearing aids?
Well, it wasn't myself. I don't use the word I because that takes a team. And a lot of what you said of where Starkey's at, it's because of a team. And it evolved, but in a short and fast-paced way. Bill had a vision for where the hearing aid was going. We've talked about it for 20 years. And then we had an opportunity of bringing new talent outside the industry. Achin Bomick and as our new CTO from Intel, who was their expert in AI, and then start talking about the possibilities. And then you find out around the campus of Starkey and R&D what it can do for the patient for technology, and you have to start somewhere, right? And if you're going to fail in some areas, you fail fast. You do in some features, you do in some ideas, whatever it might be. But when it comes with AI, I knew it was time for Starkey because I've been in it long enough, the industry, even in 2017. Let's take a swing at the fence. Let's be different. No more incremental, improvements and changes. Let's be bold.
Yeah, I love it. And we're not doing AI just for technology's sake, but to benefit the patient.
Patient, yes. Has to benefit the patient.
Been central. So you're also a huge baseball fan.
Yes, yeah.
Favorite Cubs player of all time?
Oh, Ryne Samberg, number 23.
Why?
I grew up in Southern Illinois, so my grandpa was a Cubs fan. So in Southern Illinois, you're either a Cardinal fan or a Cub fan. And 90% are Cardinal fans. So I guess I was going against the grain a little bit even back then. And I think it was a 1984 Cubs team. So I would have been 9 years old. And Ryne Samberg was MVP and went from there.
Okay.
Followed him his whole career.
You met him.
couple times, yes. Yeah, I have.
What is your favorite job that you've had at Starkey aside from the two you have now as president and CEO?
When I started, I did a lot of different jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I used to joke that chief executive gopher because I had a lot of, it was a variety, but that also was the foundation of learning the business, or Starkey, the business, and then meeting people that I still have strong relationships today that are customers. So, there's that. I did the reception, answering the phones, which I think is one of the hardest jobs at Starkey. I mean, we have 8 operators. They answer with a live voice, and you don't understand until you do it. Trying to get that person to the right person that they want within the company while more calls are coming in. But I always, so I kind of go 2 phases of my career, and then later is sales and marketing, right? Back to the market and the patient and the customers. And the marketing is fun because you get to create all the different personalities and bring out the personalities and give the new products and the technologies, talk about market, what they are doing, and give them, like I said, their own character.
So summarizing all of them.
I guess that's a hard one, but I would go. It's a customer side, the events probably.
We'll put a pin in that for a little bit, but you've had the opportunity, as you mentioned, to meet a lot of people in your career. What's one person that you haven't met that you would go back in time to meet if you had the opportunity to time travel?
Billy Graham.
Billy Graham.
Yes.
So you never met Billy Graham?
I didn't. That's the one. I had an opportunity to go with Bill, and I can't recall why I didn't. And it was one of those, I'll get to meet him again. And it's just, I think there's people throughout history that are known around the world, and that influence, and you say their name, and you think about who all they have met. And I think I don't know who would be left. I think the passing of Queen Elizabeth is one of those figures of history that you think of all the people she met in her lifetime. Name that how many U.S. presidents, right? Just start there. And Billy Graham was another one.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite was that I did meet was Walter Cronkite. And I got to spend, I think it was 96, 97, picked him up at the airport. He came up, we took care of his hearing until he passed. And I got to spend the day with him. I got to pick his brain all day. He was the nicest man, very nice. And we just talked all day because I'm a history buff, as you know. So I got to learn some things. So
let's play Brandon and Dave's excellent adventure and say, independent of if we fit them, is there an individual in history that you would love to meet if we could time travel?
Yeah, Lincoln.
Yeah,
I would say Lincoln.
That was
because of the adversity and just, I could go down the list. I've read enough books and biographies, studied, Lincoln.
And Southern Illinois.
And Illinois,
too.
Yes.
Yep, of course. I also know you're a space nut.
Yes.
Who is your favorite astronaut?
Oh, didn't see that one coming. I would say Alan Shepard.
Why?
Because he was the first to get on top of a rocket that was built by the least inexpensive parts that that anybody could that the contract called for, and it had never been done before.
Yeah.
So think about it.
That quote has been widely attributed to a number of different astronauts.
It was Shepard and Glenn, but no, I've studied Mercury program, Apollo, Gemini, all of it. It just fascinates me.
No, recently we had the opportunity to watch one of the SpaceX.
We've had a lot of the Mercury 7 astronauts up here earlier in my career, and I got to become good friends with Scott Carpenter. So I went to NASA Kennedy Space Center with Carpenter once and got toured around. And being able to ask him what it was like and going through all of that. Again, just I learned from people that have been there, done that in various points of history in their careers.
And you've said from time to time that when you were little, you wanted to be an astronaut growing up.
Yes, I would be an astronaut. But I gave up on that, I think, somewhere in high school because of you had to be really good in math, I was told. So I didn't apply myself as I should have.
You're better than you give yourself credit for it. I've seen you with numbers. What is, in your opinion, the most underrated hearing aid feature?
I would say, waterproof just popped into the coating, and I think what goes into what we're doing with our Hydra Shield and what I see and know, the process and the automation that hearing aids to avoid the daily things that we take for granted.
Yeah.
And so candidly, that's the first thing that popped in my head, because the second thing I could go into would be the edge mode.
Yeah. Well, and I think
But it
we're
gets a
now
lot of
seeing
play,
that
so it's
is
not
now,
underrated.
not underrated anymore. It's
No.
our third most used
No,
feature after volume control.
Edge
and
mode
program
plus
control.
is I use it pretty much every time.
Yeah. But I agree. The waterproof element, the ear is a hostile work environment. And so
Well,
it's underrated.
It's
but
underrated because if you don't
extremely
have it, I
important.
also know what happens on the other end. So
Exactly.
that's where it's, take it for granted, but never take it for granted.
Can you describe or remember the first time you saw a hearing smile from a patient fitted for the first time or in a long time with hearing aids?
When I first started at Starkey, so 97, and I went on the very first, I would say what we now call, the missions that the Austins and the foundation now does. I went on the first one in 1997 to El Salvador. So that would be my third year at Starkey, and had no idea what to expect. And my assignment was just bringing in the people, standing with Bill, helping him out, doing whatever was needed. And that was the first one. When I saw this kid, I have a picture, and I don't know her name, but, where, again, you've seen it more than I have probably out on missions, and couldn't hear her mother, and then boom.
Addictive.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Yep, 1997. Yeah, then it was 3 days, and we were down there, or Bill and the team was just down there to help. There was a request, and then from that, people that were with us from Starkey, it was only a handful, and then somebody went back, created a video that night, and then it was just Niagara Falls with everybody. And I think from that moment on, it's just that was the genesis of what came to become, I'll say, the staple at the Starkey Hearing Foundation, and then the galas and such.
Yeah. And 3 years in. So 3 years into
3
your
years,
tenure,
yes. Yep.
I'm paraphrasing the quote where, the most important day is when you're born.
Yeah.
Second most important day is when you figure out why you're born.
Yes.
That probably was the hook.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Who is the person you most admire or is your role model, and why?
Boy, you're going to put me on the spot.
Yeah,
and there's going to be a lot of people, several people.
Say,
maybe.
wait a minute, what about me?
Yeah. No, my mother.
Yeah.
I mean, without a doubt. I mean, I look back now and seeing what, she did with her career, but also, making it seamless to being a stay-at-home mother. But she wasn't a stay-at-home mother. She was out in the industry locally. She had her own hearing dispensing practice, and then, but she made it seem like she didn't, because she was always there, for sports or whatever it might be. But then also going through when I started Starkey, and then the last 30 years, seeing what she has done then and through in this industry. Yeah, I mean, that's no doubt. I mean, might sound, oh, mama's boy. Well, I guess so. I'll take it.
I don't up to that one. Tanny is
so
an
admiring,
yes,
yes,
person for a lot of people.
I'm blessed because I have her, and then Bill, who's been the mentor for me, and the things that he would talk to me about in the 90s and the aughts, and all these classes and travel and things you can't get out of a textbook. And I would, you saw, he's like, yeah, I've heard that story before. Here we go again, walks to school uphill both ways. But he's right. I mean, I appreciate it more and more. And, I'll still take the time to go up and talk to him at night and just pick his brain.
Like you said, you've been fortunate to have a number of great mentors.
Yes, so. I have.
What's your favorite food? This one's an easy
pizza.
One. Yep.
I think most of people probably that know me know that one. So,
What is the best advice you've received during your 30 years here at Starkey?
Take the initiative. This is still true today. Is don't wait around for somebody to tell you what to do, or it's okay to be proactive. Take initiative. There was really nobody said, "Well, that's not my job description."
Right.
I don't do that. If something needed to be done, didn't matter if it was helping with the classes, dishes, trash, customer service, receptionist, you did it. I mean, that's the best, because that's how you learn too.
Yeah.
If people want to be helped, they're not going to tell you no. It's just your attitude and how you're going to approach it.
Right. Around here, I mean, to people just starting, we always say, don't point.
Right.
If someone asks a question,
Correct.
Don't point, lead them to there.
Yeah.
And
it goes along with our
initiative.
mission statement. Just, help service and help people.
Yeah. So now that you're 30 years in, you're president and CEO of the organization. What advice do you have for other leaders or emerging leaders?
Oh, it's about the people. Don't get caught up in the title.
Mhm.
I mean, you have a responsibility that comes with your job and your role, but you're only going to be as good as the people you put around you and have on the team. Because at the end of the day, you win or lose as a team, not as an individual. Being a leader, that's the responsibility. And the responsibility that comes with that is, and it's hard at times. I will be candid. It gets hard where I'm a fixer, so you want to do everything or kind of, go around and help people out or, move things along or try and take care of it because if you can. But you also have to have a team that, you help develop, grow, trust. And, I'm fortunate to have that team that has, matured in their job every year, just like I have. And they know what to do. They know who Starkey is and, they work together as that team. So hire caring people
Mhm.
with the great attitudes and then develop the talent.
Yep.
That's the advice.
Yep, I've heard you speak to that authentically over the years. So, what is one word you would want all Starkey employees to use when describing where it is that they work?
Purpose.
Okay, love it.
Because we're a company with purpose because we help people. I mean,
Mhm.
we change people's lives through connecting them back to their family, their job, whatever it might be, bringing the best out of them as we can through better hearing and our
Mhm.
caring technology. So, I mean, people stay at Starkey. People come to Starkey for that one word. That's what I would say.
Do you have a favorite quote?
The one that popped into my mind when you asked that, honestly, was Mike Tyson's quote.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
it
no.
was everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Well, we've lived
Been
that the
there,
last
been there,
5
done
years
that.
or so, yeah.
Churchill's quote of, if you're going through hell, keep going. It's going to be bad
Mhm.
days, right?
Mhm.
And you got to keep moving forward. But I've always used, and I have it on my desk at home, a Lincoln's quote: "Whatever you do, be a good one."
Yeah, I love that one. All right. If you could help the average person, not someone working in the organization or
Yeah.
one of the hearing care providers we work with, but the average person understand one thing about hearing aids, what would it be?
Oh, the stigma is so far 30 years ago. I mean, it's cool technology.
Mhm.
It's, what hearing does. And to sum it up, what I would say to them is, the five senses, hearing is feeding and exercising the brain. That's driving and doing everything that you need for the day. And we're developing and providing technology that nobody else is doing in our industry. And we have to make complex simple,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, you look at AI and some of our features, what AI can do and help, as through our processor and get people back in the game on what they're missing. I always think of the movie Up,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
From Disney, whether it's, movies or TV or articles, how they portray the technology that can help people now and what, we're doing.
Mhm.
It's, no way does it do it justice. And, you know, hearing aids are cool. That's what I
Yeah.
say. I always try to think of what does that, word date me because my son, likes to say lit. It's lit, Dad.
It's
"Ah,
lit."
lit. That took me
Yeah.
a while to figure that one out. But yeah, so it is. We're working on really cool stuff.
And we're seeing that the age of first-time hearing aid users is coming down.
Yes.
So I think we're innovating in that area and helping drive that rather. You're fond of saying, we really need to have fun at work too. And when we do launch events, I think we achieve that.
Mhm.
There have been a lot of great launch events over the years. Is there a single one that is your favorite?
Oh, 1A, 1B. Yeah. You have to enjoy where you're coming to work at. Are you going to enjoy it every day? No. I mean, we're human. But I think part of Starkey's culture is that fun and getting back to let's celebrate as a team.
Yeah.
The launch events are, frankly, designed starting for the team to celebrate their success.
Mhm.
And then it was like, oh, well, let's put this out virtually or let's share it with the rest of so, that kind of evolved. The first one was Livio.
Yeah.
The Livio launch, I think we did out here in the
It was a
parking
blast.
lot.
It was hot.
And it was hot. It was hot. Whoever decided to do that one in August, I tell you. But that was a fun one because that was a transition for Starkey.
Mhm.
That was, the start in that transition. The second one would be what we just did last year, of course. So I know you asked for only one, but I'd be, remiss if I didn't say it. Like the Genesis launch, we arrived. We're at the level, and we're now on our path for our vision and where we're going to be. And it started with Genesis, 5 years in the making, and a new Starkey had just been introduced.
How'd you come up with the idea for the Hearing Innovation Expo? Legend in the industry.
I don't. I know, but I don't know if I've ever really told anybody. To be honest with you, I told people, which is true when I was used to jog. We had just come back. I can't remember. I think it was 5 or 6 weeks from somewhere, various customer groups, and I never want to do that again. It was just so long, and it was so long on the staff and away from families and everything. And every time we did a customer group or product training, I kept thinking, how do we got to do this different? It can't be just by group by group by group. And because some groups, they think that, well, you like me better. It's kind of like your kids, right? Like, no, there's a better way. We're stronger and better together. And I wanted to show also that size of the customer group together, that we have more in common than differences, and start breaking down those barriers in that mindset. Yeah, 2012.
2012 was
the first
expo, so it was probably 2011 or 10.
Right, and the word expo, all of that, Starkey, and I've never told anybody this.
Okay.
I should say it, maybe one or two people, but it was Iron Man 2, because I think in there was a Stark Expo, and I was thinking, Expo,
Starkey.
And that was kind of the name and where we got it, and then kind of went from there. Because there was so many other events in the industry. Let's showcase what we're doing. Let's showcase the people, the talent, and the rest is history, they say.
Yeah. No, and I want to feed right into that one then. What's been your favorite interview at the expo? You've had the opportunity to have some tremendous guests.
Oh, we could go down this road.
One.
President Bush.
President Bush.
By
Got
far.
It. Noted.
We share that in common.
Yeah. No, I know. We both got to do it. And people see it on TV, and you watch like Barbara Walters or whomever interview someone live for an hour. Looks pretty easy, but I guarantee you they probably had 4 hours of video to condense it to 1 hour to do a live hour for an interview, because I was fully sweated through my shirt underneath my sport coat.
I think he and I we've had those discussions, those interviews 4 or 5 times at various events. And we're now, we just get up there and talk. Yeah. I always kind of like, you always have a guide, kind of like, okay, where do I want to take a conversation and get out of it? But he's one of the individuals, former president sitting up there. You're incredible. You're thinking, you're sitting there talking, and then there's always stuff going on in the back of your mind. But he just naturally puts everybody easy, and you just have a conversation.
Yeah, it's like interviewing a river. It just flows.
And we all know there's been tough ones too. There's always, but it's been a remarkable experience.
Yep. If you weren't working in the hearing industry, what would you be doing?
Well, I think that, as you said, the astronaut thing's probably out. I don't know why this pops in my head. I think it's more of a hobby than what I would do, but weather fascinates me. And I think my arm is kind of blown, so I think pitching's out anymore.
Yeah, pitching's out by this point. Yeah. What keeps you awake at night?
Oh, you know the answer. I don't want to say it. Yeah, complacency.
Yeah.
I'm wired and hardwired to always keep moving forward. What can we do better? What can we do better? And I think that's, for me, and as a leader, that's a motivator. But I've also had to learn how to adjust my throttle on that one, because you can't go. You want to go hard and fast and go at it, but then you also have to know that you can only push the organization so much. And there's been times, some will tell you, that I might have pushed too hard, but we're still here.
Nope.
But it's complacency. You can't. It's the blockbuster syndrome. Lead, adapt, or die, and you cannot just think you've arrived and get comfortable. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
You mentioned throttle. Your son William is a budding NASCAR rock star, and but I also know you like to drive. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
I'll give myself an 8.
Okay, I'm an excellent driver.
I'm an excellent driver. I'm an excellent driver.
Driver. Okay.
Yeah, no. He has a talent that, I won't claim it. it's his own talent. But for me, I've never went as fast as he does. But sure, I'll give myself an 8.
Okay. And I've ridden with you a couple times. We've filmed a couple times when you went into launch mode on one of your cars. Let me get to that. Then you like to drive, and you're a car guy, and not always fancy cars. But
no, I got out of that.
Car of all time that you've had.
1979 black Ford Bronco, pure steel when cars were made of that. And I know that's not, but it was just a fun car. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that sophomore year, junior year in high school.
Yeah. Love to have that now.
I'm always looking for, back then, I guess it may be a little problem with the gas line, and it literally blew up. But obviously I got out in time. But, I had a big pull to Corvettes, right? Or Corvette, and driven a Corvette, got that. Mm-hmm. Now it's just, how do I get to work? I don't even think about it, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But my favorite car, would be the Bronco.
Yeah, I'd love to have one of those. Can you isolate and think about what has been the most impactful moment of your career? Is that even possible?
A lot of things come up. I would say the most impactful, as people would think, you can go two ways on this. Impactful being something that obviously was known, a big win or whatever. I would, for me, impactful could also be the most, it was a motivating, the hardest, and reality is probably April 4th, 2020, when the industry was shutting down, offices were shutting down, and people looking at me, what, do this, what do we need to do? And coming up with a plan to, unfortunately, cash flow and preserve what we could with the pandemic. But the day that, again, we had to furlough a lot of people.
Yep.
And I think that was probably the most impactful day of my 30 years, because we have fun, like you said, and we've done a lot of great things over the years, but that was the most impactful, because then everything got real, as it did in the world, real fast. And then you just buckle down, and it's like, figure it out.
Well, that reminds me of the Tyson quote. When we got punched the world got punched in the mouth. Yeah. We had just launched Edge mode.
Yeah, we just came off the expo.
Had all the training plans and everything, and it all had to go virtual. And we initially, people just had to worry about. We had to worry about how people could keep their doors open.
And you made your plan each day. You couldn't plan out. And so that's how I define, when you asked that, that's what came to my mind, because that redefined the world as we know. But for me, pushed me way outside my not comfort zone. Well, there was nobody had experience in this.
Well, and one of your quotes,
and the people, and doing, and seeing people that were leaving, and they were thanking me, and that was the hardest part. I mean, that was because they knew what we had to do and why. Everybody was sacrificing then.
Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult that was, because it is, a culture here. Take care of the company takes care of you, and those had to have been just incredibly difficult decisions. What is the first thing you do when you come into the office in the morning?
Apologize and say, sorry, I'm late.
Yeah, I would say that, you're not necessarily the first in the office, but you're the last one to leave.
My routine changes depending on the week, or if there's travel or jet lag, whatever. But, I try and do emails in the morning at home, because emails just turned into a full-time job. And then you get, yes, I talk to people at Starkey, I get calls, customer calls, and some things. And then, I'm aware of the time, but I always know that I'm kind of run a little bit behind. So
yeah, well, and you've got to give the attention to the person that you're on the phone with, or in the meeting with,
or texts, and you get bombarded from all different everybody. Yeah.
Everyone wants a piece.
Yes.
What excites you the most about the future of the hearing industry?
Technology, because I think I know we will expand where we're going with and who we're reaching and helping. I mean, what the technology is going to be able to do, and that we're not catching up. Yeah. And I firmly believe this, because I'm pretty real about where we're at. We're leading in the areas that this industry needs to go, not only for the professional and the tools and that role, how it evolves, but it's always about the patient.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a great team, and being privately held, we are making decisions for the patient.
Right.
And at the end of the day, the patient will decide. And we have yourself and so many others here that know the patient and know this industry. I am grateful that I get to come here every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think back and like, who would have thought?
Yeah.
Because not
Yeah.
me. This wasn't the role like many of us, where we're at now. I never thought this is where destiny would take you.
Yeah. Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So 30 years in, what advice would you give to someone just starting out in the hearing aid industry? There's always fear around the corner, whether it's some disruptor, but what advice would you give to someone just starting out?
It's the people business.
Yeah.
If you start looking at the P&Ls and all that stuff right out, and you're not setting yourself up for success, because you can't save your way to success. And you have to care, and you have to work with the people.
Make sure you have the passion for it, and then everything else
It starts with caring. Yep. You have to have caring and passion, and then with that service mindset. If you have that, you'll be successful.
Personally, I know you're kind of a bucket list person, but what's at the top now? You've knocked off some bucket list items, but what's at the top of your bucket list now?
My bucket list seems to always be spontaneous.
Kilimanjaro wasn't spontaneous. I was there when you were working out.
Well, yeah, but it was spontaneous when I told Heinz and committed, asked, sure, I'll do it. Thinking it was a day. I didn't know it was 8 days and 19,341 feet. That's spontaneous.
Yeah.
You and I talked about this. Antarctica. I think I want to touch the South Pole.
Me too.
Why? It's there.
It's there. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And then you can say you've been on all 7 continents.
Yeah. For me, it's 7 continents before incontinence. What is one thing that you have not accomplished yet, but you want to personally or professionally?
The first wisecrack was, I was going to say, get in shape. But you continue to train and develop yourself to enjoy life more.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not the answer you're looking for.
Yeah.
But what's great is that being a part of the team, and you build a team on your professional side, and you have a great supporting team on your personal side, is, you're not feeling the stress or anxiety or that you got to be doing this, or this, where normally if I go on a vacation, it takes 3 to 4 days for me to really start just, cut it off, where you feel like you're on vacation.
Yeah.
So I guess, you go all the mental, personal well-being, and I guess it is exercise and just feeling good about where everything is.
Yeah.
Turning my switch off. I don't have an off button right now.
I know that is a struggle for you.
So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's several ways. But
yeah. Here's a hard one. What would you like your legacy to be?
Oh, my kids, family.
Yeah.
Because I think that's anybody's. It's not. Starkey is, Starkey should go on without me. I'm not the end all be all. None of us are. And I think anybody's legacy is personal opinion, that your greatest legacy is going to be what you leave with your kids and how they're going to contribute, and family overall. Not just, some people have kids, some people don't. Great personal choices, but it's what are you going to do with helping others and paying that forward.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
I don't think it's business. It is all about, paying it forward and just helping others. It goes back to the word purpose.
Love it. All right. How about from the standpoint of if you're willing to share one thing about you that most people wouldn't know?
Other habits, good habits, bad habits that I have, just like everybody else, I have a few vices. I haven't drank in 9 years.
I know.
I'm starting, because of my son, getting more of a NASCAR fan than probably even baseball. Baseball's changed so much, but I still love baseball, but we love the nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
I used to think I could ride horses like John Wayne, but my daughter proved me wrong on that.
Yeah.
So, there's, you think back and there's a lot here to me that, I think is pretty boring, but I also naturally always deflect. And that's not, I don't mean that in a negative term, but just when people ask about what you did, just, I always kind of make it about them too.
Okay. I appreciate
I don't know why.
honesty. No, I appreciate that honesty. Yeah.
I've always been like that. And it's just because I always make it about the team.
Last question. Went to your mom for this.
No.
What would your mother say is your best attribute?
What would my mother say my best attribute? Kindness. I think that's what she would say. I know it's because I could think first thing that popped in my head was, oh, there's dimples. No, because get them after her. My heart is what she would say, because I think in this role as a CEO or whatever there's an image or thing, you start thinking you got to portray, or even your vice president, your manager, your director. It doesn't, you got to portray this, and everybody reads the Jack Welch books and all that. And then then there's two different people. I think what I've learned is that this goes back to what she said too, and Bill, and lead with your heart. I think if you're genuine, I think the insecurity drives that facade, right? The robot mode. But once you get comfortable speaking about what you're doing, where you're going, the company, you got the people, and it's a maturity thing too. But for me, I like helping others. I mean, you've done the same. As somebody needs help with a hearing aid, I don't look at how much it costs. Like, okay, I know we can afford it to help somebody out if it's going to help them X, Y, Z. We do it around Christmas, or I just do random things, because I think people ask me what my hobby is, and to me that gives me energy. Just helping others, and I don't ask anything in return.
Want to know what she really said?
Probably something a lot shorter than that.
Heart came up, for sure, of course, because you're always looking on social media to find stories of people who are in need, and your heart, certainly you lead with that. But we talked quite a lot about this. We talked about your independence and your drive. She said that she had you in a walker, one of those rolling walkers, at 6 months, that you were walking independently at 9 months. Then the part I liked was,
here it comes,
first day of kindergarten. She took you in, and you wanted to be dropped off at kindergarten, first day, 2 blocks from school, because you wanted to go in on your own, your independence. And she said she had to form a compromise with you on the spot, that she could drop you off in front of the school, but you went in by yourself. And she said that independence was evident in you when you were 9 months old, certainly carried through in 5, and then to see that blossom into where you are now. She knew that you were going to be destined to run a business, own a business, lead an organization, because of that independence. But then she did also mention.
Well, I wouldn't have said it. Yes, she's right. But again, not talking about myself, it's like that's a character of mine that has always been there, but I wouldn't proactively. But yeah, I can see her saying that
a little bit. You don't want to hear about that.
No, well, it's like I'm listening. I could hear her telling that story. But it's points all through my life, just like others have. I've always wanted not to be in charge, but the responsibility, which goes with the independence.
Yeah, and the other part that comes back to this heart is, lots of people have had opportunities through circumstance or otherwise, but the opportunity is not a promise or a guarantee of success. No. And she said the other part, your heart, but also your drive and the energy that you're willing to put in to ensure that you don't waste an opportunity.
No.
Something that,
it's
beyond intuition. It's sort of recognizing that you have an opportunity, but you want to not waste that opportunity because you realize you have to put the hard work in.
No, I am driven, and yes, that comes, but it comes with the passion you have for what you're doing, for sure. But you don't. You keep moving forward. You just. I'm not a quitter, by any means.
Nope.
And I've had a lot of good people around me, and I've had a lot of great people I could name endlessly for another 45 minutes or an hour. That's helped me through my career. But I've had a great upbringing. I've been fortunate. We've all had ups and downs, but we're all at a good place, and we're going to keep doing great things.
I hope so. I plan to be here for as long as you'll have me. So we've gotten through 30 for 30, and then a couple follow-on questions with those. So I appreciate your willingness to sit through and let me throw some curveballs at you to continue with the baseball metaphor.
No.
And congratulations
on
your anniversary on June 20th of 30 years. and stewarding the company in your role now as president and
my
CEO.
30th skip year. As I came up here, did a summer job, was going to go to college, my second year of college, said, oh, do a skip year, I had do more work because I love Starkey so much. And 30 years later, the skip year continues. And I'm very fortunate to work with you and many other great people at Starkey.
Well, and thank you for your leadership. And, it's cliche where people say, well, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. You'll work your ass off a lot of days.
You work.
But, your passion for what you do comes through. And everyone in the organization can see that. We tried to do this in 30 minutes. We didn't hit that. But some years, the 30 questions, some were a little longer, some were a little shorter, and some flew by a little faster. But I thank you for going through them all with me.
My pleasure.
And for our listeners, thank you for your attention on this special episode celebrating 30 years with Brandon. And if you have other ideas of topics that we should consider in the future or bring Brandon back for a sixth time, I think that's a pretty sure bet. Send us an email at soundbites@starkey.com. Until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching if you're on the YouTube platform. And we'll look forward to seeing and hearing you again really soon. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, Dave.